From a smothering defensive effort to explosive plays by the wide receivers and running backs, Notre Dame's win over Boise State was a reminder of just how much star power this roster really has. We're breaking down everything we liked and didn't like from the win over the Broncos, coming up next.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, and welcome into another edition of Locked On Irish, your daily Notre Dame podcast. My name is Tyler Wojciak, and I'm the host. I'm a Notre Dame alum, producer at Fox Sports, and I've been covering the Irish for the past 5 years. It is great to have you here with me on Tuesday, October 7th, and thanks for making this your first watch or listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. And remember to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you are listening to the podcast so that way you stay up to date with our daily coverage of Notre Dame football. And we have got a lot to cover after Notre Dame's big win over Boise State. And joining me today is Luke Smith. And as always, he's got his boots on the ground report from South Bend, where it was a record hot afternoon inside Notre Dame Stadium. From there, we're going to dive into our 3 things we liked and didn't like segment that we do every Tuesday, including why this wide receiver core looks like the best Notre Dame has had in years, how the run defense completely shut down a top 20 rushing attack, and why rising stars like Tae Johnson, Jadarian Price, and Leonard Moore are changing the complexion of this team. On the flip side, there are some concerning developments on the injury front, plus a few parting shots for the officials after a dreadful performance on Saturday. Enjoy. All right, Luke Smith is back with us, and we've got to start here. It was about 1,000 degrees in South Bend on Saturday, apparently the hottest early October day on record. So how exactly did you survive sitting through that furnace for 4 hours?
You know, I was pretty lucky. I was in the shade underneath the home press box, so it was not that hot where I was sitting. I would say the tailgate experience was definitely very warm. Definitely tried to stay under some tents, but I didn't feel it as much during the game because just the way the sun was shining that day. But it's strange for it being 85 degrees in early October. I don't really know what's going on. I shouldn't complain because it'll be probably 30 by the time this thing drops with all the Chicago luck we have here. But definitely some unseasonably warm temps.
Yeah, I can't remember a home game this hot, this late in the season. Like usually the home opener is a scorcher. That Texas game, when Notre Dame opened up against them back in 2015. That was a really, really hot day of tailgating, but the game was at night. But it looked like an awesome day in South Bend. Fans got to enjoy a pretty comfortable win, even though Notre Dame was down 7-6 at one point in the second quarter. It never felt like Notre Dame was in any real danger of losing this game. But at least from my standpoint, watching the game on television, it looked like there were quite a few Boise State fans in the crowd.
Definitely, and I think that's a good point. I had not walked campus on a Friday night before a game in a long time. I've done it during the morning, afternoon, but I don't know that I've done that, honestly, since I was in college, and it was awesome. There's just people everywhere. You can feel the dorms starting to get a little bit going, the dorm parties that are getting going.
Yeah, what is 40s at 5?
Yeah,
40s?
this was at like 8, 9 o'clock at night, so a little bit later, but still. But it's just as you're walking around, like there's kind of an autumnal feeling to that place, even if it is 85 degrees like it was. But I want to give Boise fans a big shout out because they definitely showed out and they clearly were really enjoying themselves. Like as my girlfriend and I are on that walk, I keep passing people in Boise stuff and I can just hear them saying like, wow, this campus is amazing. It's so pretty. And then we walked over to the Morrison bar, and as we're sitting there trying to order a drink, a older gentleman walks up to us asking if we're in for the game. Tell him we are, and he's just like kind of smiling from ear to ear. He's in from Boise, saying he's had Notre Dame on his bucket list for 35 years, and he just hopes the Broncos keep it competitive. And I think for me, it was just really helpful perspective, and it I think makes me appreciate South Bend a little bit more and how lucky those of us who live nearby or in Chicago who get to do this so frequently are. But it was great, and the day itself, the game, thought the tailgate lots were pretty solid despite it being hot, and then I would say in the stands, it was like maybe this might be a little high. Let's say 20% Boise fans, less than A&M, I thought, but definitely more than your standard road game. And I kind of started noticing Boise fans in Chicago on Thursday night at the Cubs-Padres game 3. Like they definitely had a big presence. So I will say like wasn't the greatest atmosphere in the stadium, but the horrific officiating kind of ignited the whole crowd, Notre Dame and Boise fans alike.
Yeah, it's bad when I was getting annoyed when Boise State was getting called for a penalty by the end of the game. It was like, all right, look, I understand that benefits Notre Dame, but can we please keep the game moving? Yeah, it was ridiculous, and I do think, and I think you could sense that on the television broadcast, there was a little bit of just a unified sense of just disdain for the officials from Notre Dame fans and Boise State fans alike, because you're right, it felt like they were trolling at one point in time. But I do got to ask about a particular man in your section who might have not taken to the heat quite as well as other people.
Did that happen?
No, I'm talking about the guy who might have smelled it.
Oh, geez. I forgot about this. Yeah, there was a gentleman who he must have forgotten to put deodorant on that day. And for the first couple drives, he was actually 2 rows in front of me. First couple drives, there was nobody directly in front of us, so we had no buffer. And then thankfully, this poor mother and her kids showed up, and they just took the brunt of that because he was the worst smelling guy I've ever smelled in my life. So, yeah.
I was going to say, we can't get a boots on the ground report when I know that you had a funny interaction with the fan in the stadium and us not bringing it up. We wouldn't be doing our jobs here.
Yeah, I mean, like, hey, I hope he doesn't have a problem, but like next time, just, when it's that warm, you got to layer up on the deodorant.
Yeah. All right, look, we all know now when it's hot, wear deodorant and then brace ourselves for potentially some more hot games. Notre Dame is in the midst of a 3-game home stretch. They get the win over Boise State. There's a ton of different things to like from this one. What was the main thing that stood out to you?
The one that jumps out is just a familiar-looking defense. It had been a while since we had seen a Notre Dame defense play like that, and I think I texted this early on, but receivers weren't running free in the first couple drives, and low bar, but it was allowing the defense to get home, and it was kind of like, okay, yes, this is what I expected to see. This is what I remember seeing. Like, the only way Boise was really having success was Maddox Madsen having a rollout to his right, and then he would just kind of dish the ball off, and felt a lot like Notre Dame's defense in the last few years. There were a bunch of coverage sacks. The defense turned the Broncos over, and they just made Madsen look really bad. It's always a good sign when you go on Twitter and you see the opposing fan base just bemoaning how awful their quarterback is. And he did throw 4 picks, and that happened a lot for Notre Dame the last few years. I mean, anytime you look, it's like Anthony Calandria should never play quarterback again, or whoever the heck the guy was that played for Florida State last year, Brock Glenn, I don't even remember. Like, that was a constant thing. Graham Mertz going way back. Like, this has just been Notre Dame's defense the last 5-6 years, and that hadn't been the case the last few games. Now, I'm not sure this Boise offense would exactly light the world on fire against a lot of P4 teams, but it was good to see the defense look like a group we'd become so accustomed to.
That was an Al Golden staple, just making life hell for opposing quarterbacks. And it felt like they would always have their worst game of the season when they played Notre Dame. You just think back to the type of hell that Connor Wigman was in the season opener, where, first of all, he's puking on the field. He has no idea what he's seeing down the field. And Texas A&M fans were ready to run him out of town right after the game. It took him a few games, but eventually Wigman left town. Now he's a starting quarterback at Houston. But one thing that helps any defense is when you have a supremely talented safety, and Notre Dame has had a bunch of those in recent years. They've had Kyle Hamilton. They've had Xavier Watts. We could go back to like the late 20 or early 2010s when they had Harrison Smith, who might be an NFL Hall of Famer. I don't want to get too ahead of myself here, but I think Tae Johnson is next. Is he going to be better than Adon Schuler? I'm not sure, because Schuler looked good again. But Tae Johnson is an absolute stud. He's quickly becoming one of the most exciting players on the team. He didn't see the field really at all against Miami, and that's one of those decisions now where it's like maybe he could have been out there for a few more plays. We've always known that he was an elite athlete, but now we're seeing just how physical he is. Like, he's already 7th on the team with 19 tackles, and he laid down some violent hits in this game. And considering he had basically no experience on defense before college, his development is pretty remarkable. And I just think that Notre Dame is flying around everywhere. And with Tae Johnson back there, they just look better. And I have a lot more confidence in the secondary, especially in coverage.
They really do. And I think the biggest question mark, like you said, with him going in was just what's his knowledge of the defense. It seems like he's picked that up pretty quickly because him compared to Jalen Stroman out there, it's not really a competition to me. And I think Luke Talish has been okay. He's had some moments where he played well. I think he did a decent job trailing who was, it looked like Boise's backup tight end, because I don't think the good tight end played this week. He did some nice stuff with him, but he's just head and shoulders above those guys. And I think the defensive backfield as a whole just looks so much better when you have Leonard Moore out there. And you kind of got to go there next, because I know you said this on your post-game show, and I think our information is coming from the same person, but I had heard that Leonard Moore told the coaching staff he was going to play in this game despite them encouraging him not to. And he was the best player on the field anytime the Irish were on defense. And 2 interceptions. That first interception he had, I don't think it would have been possible to have better coverage. He's running with him in stride. I don't know what Mad Max saw, because Leonard Moore just turned and caught the ball, and that was pretty much it. The second pick, again, really good coverage. Actually made a pretty nice play to jump in front and catch that ball. But, man, I mean, he just makes that defense different and makes average quarterbacks look bad.
Luke is going to be right back here with us in a moment to break down more things we liked from Notre Dame's win on Saturday. But before we get to that, I want to tell you about PrizePicks. Every day, we make decisions. But on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Playing PrizePicks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. I love how quick it is. You can make your lineup in under a minute. Plus, PrizePicks just added stacks. So if I want to ride with a player, I can select their pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns all in one lineup. It's also fun to follow other players in the app and copy their lineups with one click. And the new injury reboot feature is a game changer. If your player leaves early and doesn't return, it won't count against you. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. So Leonard Moore has played in 3 full games this season, right? He had Miami, Texas A&M, missed Purdue, missed Arkansas, played Boise State. 3 full games, 3 full interceptions.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I mean, I don't know if he needs to play this week either. I'm sure he will. He's not on the injury list, but he might just be averaging 1 a game.
I was watching him as closely as I could in between plays, because that's usually when you could tell if a guy's dealing with an injury. Like I noticed that with Emil Wagner. Poor guy, when he was running on the field after he suffered that injury in the first quarter, like he was limping heavily.
Right.
Didn't really come through when he was blocking, but I didn't really notice anything with Leonard Moore. And obviously he's very young. He's a true sophomore. He's extremely gifted as an athlete, but that was a pretty brutal injury when it happened against A&M. Like it was amazing to me that he was able to come back and play that full game. So it wasn't too much of a shock that he missed the next 2 games, but considering what we know about him and his injury status going into the game, like it's remarkable how quickly he was able to recover, and it just didn't look like it was bothering him at all at any point in that game.
It didn't. So, I mean, what I said earlier about him, I was joking. I don't want him to sit, but if he needed to, I'd be fine with him against CJ Bailey and company next week doing that. But yeah, I mean, you got to give him some credit. He's clearly a guy that he's a sophomore, but he's looked to as a veteran on this team just based on how much he played last year and how well he played last year. And I think that probably bodes into his recovery. He took it super seriously so he get back out there, because for a lot of other guys, it probably takes a little bit longer to get back on the field.
In Notre Dame's secondary with him out there, Tae Johnson, it just looks so much better. Adon Schuler is playing a lot better too. I think he's freed up because he knows that Tae Johnson is a great athlete and can make up a ton of ground, so he's been making a lot of plays. But one aspect of the team that I think has been a little bit underrated through these first 5 games has been the run defense, and they came through once again. And the reason the run defense has been underrated is because the pass defense has been so bad. So no one wanted to compliment the run defense because there were clearly a bunch of issues going on that side of the ball. But they came through once again. They held Boise State to just 2.9 yards per carry, and Boise State entered the game ranked top 20 nationally in rushing yards per game. And by design, Notre Dame doesn't really create many tackles for loss in the run game, but they are really, really good at stuffing plays at the line of scrimmage, and they have not allowed many explosive run plays. Boise State had that 120-yarder right before the end of the first half, but the front 7 was flying around. They were getting after the football, and Boise State just had nothing doing, and that made life hell for Mad Max, because if they can't run the ball, everything is going to be put on him, and that was a losing proposition for Boise State. So Boubacar Traore had 4 run stops. KVA and Jordan Botelho each had 3, and it was just a bunch of different guys making plays around the ball, and Boise State just had nothing doing on the ground.
They really didn't, and you're right. This is something that Notre Dame has actually done well all season, despite what some people may want you to believe. That the rush defense has been good, and so if they can build off that now and build off this performance from the passing defense, then hopefully going into that SC game in 2 weeks, they'll really be primed in a position to keep that within reason. Because I think NC State, they've got some nice players. The quarterback's not bad, but I don't think NC State's going to have a ton of success against this Notre Dame defense that they did last week.
I do want to switch over to the offensive side of the ball because there's obviously some good stuff there. But before we do you think that the defense has turned a corner in the sense that they're going to be a strength of the team now going forward? Or are you still in wait and see mode?
I generally like the school of thought that you need to see something 3 times before you can take it as Bible. So I'm gonna wait for one more game. I do think we'll see that this week, but for me, it's kind of 3 games and then I kind of believe it. And how does this defense handle success when they've really built on a better performance against Arkansas that still left a lot to be desired? A really good performance this week. Is this one going to be even better? Do they take a step back? Let's see what happens this week.
For me, I think I'm going to wait until that USC game because it's one thing to do it against a Boise State team that just is not going to be able to match Notre Dame from a talent perspective. And then an Arkansas team who literally quit on their coach by halftime, even though they had some really talented players. And I don't want to diminish that because they did play well in that game, but we have to accept the reality that game was over and Notre Dame's defense benefited from that. And then Purdue in the second half, totally different story from the first half. But if they go out there and they shut down NC State, and NC State has been able to put up some points, and then they do it again against USC, by that point, I'll be ready to consider them a strength and the team as a whole pretty complete, although there are some issues on special teams. But we'll get to that later.
Yeah, no, we will because there's definitely some concerns there.
All right, so offensively, what was the main thing that you liked about this game?
You made a joke about Jadarian Price, the touchdown merchant, after his 49-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter. But, I mean, that guy has just been so efficient this year, and he's really probably become one of my 3 most favorite guys to watch on the team. And it's just really cool to see him have so much success. He could have gone so many different places. It's a guy that, like I said last week, tore his Achilles, and he's just really tearing it up. And honestly, what I want to know at this point is I don't know how many 30-plus yard touchdown runs he has. It feels like a lot. It might not even stack up historically well to his running mate, Jeremiah Love. He might be up there. He might have more, but I feel like he's got a decent amount. I tried to ChatGPT this earlier, and it was not helpful. But anyways, I'm very curious if anybody has research on that.
I'm looking it up right now. So far this year, he already has 7 runs of over 15 yards.
Okay.
I'm not seeing over 30 on Pro Football Focus, but he's an extremely explosive player. And one thing that I've kind of noticed here is he is so good that people are now becoming increasingly critical of Jeremiah Love.
Yeah.
Like they're disappointed with how Jeremiah Love runs the football because he's not scoring every time he touches the ball. And look, I get it. Jeremiah Love probably jumps too many times, but he's still an exceptional running back. And I think he's all around a better player than Jadarian Price, I should say, because like there were so many times in this game where Love would get the ball and it looked like he'd be getting stuffed with like a 2-3 yard gain. And somehow he'd just keep driving his feet and then it'd be a gain of 8. Or a gain of 9. Like the way that he's able to extend plays, even if they're not going to go for a huge gain, is just unmatched. And I also thought this was just his best game from a pass pro perspective, and he just keeps getting better. So Notre Dame is in a great place where they have 2 historically great running backs, and people are debating who's better.
Yeah, it's kind of silly to me because, I mean, don't you think that some of Price's success probably has to do with the fact that everybody is so keyed on Love? I mean, I think that should be fairly obvious to everybody. Also, the other thing is like people are taking some dirty shots at Love too, at his knees, at his head. They got to do something about that because he is going to get hurt if the officials don't watch that closer. There's been some nonsense. There was some more nonsense this past week. And all I'll say is if you're really, if you're frustrated with Jeremiah Love, then go look at Penn State because Nick Singleton this year, he has not been it. And Katron Allen still is not getting the ball nearly as enough as he can. And that was supposed to be their, competition. It's not a competition. So let's just, maybe not complain.
Yeah, it's not a competition at all. Notre Dame's running backs are playing at such an elite level right now, and it's why I think that they should be able to put up points on any single team they play, because when you're able to put up that kind of performance on the ground week after week, like, it doesn't matter what kind of defense you're going up against, you're going to be able to move the ball. It also helps to have a really good wide receiving core, and Notre Dame has not been able to say that in a really long time. But I want to give some love to the wide receivers for another really solid performance in this game. We know that it wasn't CJ Carr's best game throwing the football. After rewatching it, I still think he played pretty well. He just missed on a couple easy throws. But when you look at the wide receiver room, they complement each other so well. So they've got the big body boundary wide receiver, Malachi Fields. He's awesome at contested catches. I loved his route on that third down when I think CJ Carr might have checked to him just running a curl, makes the catch, shakes off one defender, and then turns like an 8-yard gain into about 18 to 20. He finishes with 4 receptions, 44 yards, and a touchdown. And then you have Jordan Faison in the field, who's constantly creating free access throws for the quarterback in the middle of the field and the outside. He had 6 receptions, 83 yards, continues to lead Notre Dame's wide receiver room in receptions. And then in the slot, it was Will Pauling's day because Jaden Greathouse was out with an injury, and Pauling had 2 catches for 43 yards and a touchdown. Could have had a lot more because CJ Carr went to him a few more times and he just missed him. But to me, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong here, this is the best wide receiver core Notre Dame has had since 2009. I think that this group, this 4-guy rotation with Fields, Faison, Greathouse, and Pauling, I would take them over the 2018 unit that had Miles Boykin, Chase Claypool, and Chris Fink. And then you could throw in Alize Mack as a tight end there. But I just think that the 18 group might have had a stronger 1-2 punch, but these 4 guys and the way that they've been playing, to me, is just at another level. And you have to go back to the days of Floyd and Tate. They're not better than Floyd and Tate, obviously, but it's the best since then.
It's a fair argument. I think you could definitely say that. And I think, what of course helps is that you also have a better quarterback throwing the ball. I loved Ian Book, but CJ Carr is a better quarterback, especially throwing the football, than Ian Book was. So that helps a lot, and that might make sense why I need to go back to 2009 because he's probably the best quarterback they've had since Jimmy Clausen. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
If you go back, if it's not 2018, the other competition would be 2015 when they had Will Fuller, who was amazing. There's not one guy in this current wide receiver room that is as good as Will Fuller was. But after Will Fuller, there was quite a bit of a drop-off. There was Chris Brown, Toy Hunter Jr., and Amir Carlisle. Solid players, but I don't think they're anywhere near what Jordan Faison is doing. Like, I can't believe how much better he's gotten since last season. It's remarkable how effective he is, both as a receiver and then once he has the ball in his hands, like, he's so good at breaking tackles, and it feels like every time he touches the ball, it could be a big play.
Yeah, because last year he really struggled with that too, where if he got touched, he was pretty much going down. And it's interesting. I think he's clearly taken football a lot more seriously. I don't really know a whole lot about lacrosse, but I just saw that his brother early enrolled to play lacrosse this spring, and there's some theories out there that this is going to be Jordan's last season playing lacrosse to focus on football because of that. So again, if I'm wrong on that, then please tell me I'm a moron, but I saw some people saying that. So anyways, that's out there. Regardless, I think the truth is he's taking football a lot more seriously, and you're seeing the benefits of that be reaped this fall.
It also helps to be healthy.
Yeah.
Because he was hurt all last season.
Yep.
Because he hurt his ankle in the season opener against Texas A&M, and then I think he re-injured it against Louisville, and when he aggravated it in that game, it was like more severe. I think he said that it was much more painful the second time around. He just wasn't the same player the rest of the way. But he was also dropping the ball when he did have opportunities, and that just hasn't been a thing for him this year.
No, exactly. And I mean, last year, like I said last week, this receiving core was the worst pass catching unit in the top 25 from a drops perspective. They had the most drops, and that just, knock on wood, has not been an issue.
Before Luke and I dive into the things that we didn't like from the game, I've got to tell you about a great new deal courtesy of Game Time. College football is back, and I could not be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It is the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as $25. The app made it super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seat before buying, and I love the zone deals too. Pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. And if you're looking for tickets for this upcoming game against NC State, be sure to check them out on Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Today's episode is also brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood the neighborhood. These are the places that become an extension of home. Whether it's the sports bar dedicated to your team's fan base, the spot with the best wings in town for game day, or that beloved local chain that's been rooted in your community for years. These businesses are what bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. There's a local dive bar in my neighborhood that comes alive every Sunday during football season. Everyone's in team colors, the energy is incredible, and it feels like the entire block is in there cheering together. Those local spots are what make the neighborhood feel like home, and so many of them run on Square. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnCollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. All right, let's switch it over to the things that we didn't like. This wasn't Notre Dame's cleanest performance and a win, I would say, but there's a couple things that we can focus on, but I don't think we're going to be dwelling on anything too much after that 28-7 win.
No, but it probably should have been 42 or 49. And that may prove to be a good thing because now the Irish hopefully come out a little bit sharper for the Wolfpack next week after not a great performance or not a perfect performance, but this game never really should have been competitive. And even when Boise took the lead late in the first half, I even got the feeling from some of the Boise fans around me, like they were like, wow, how are we winning this game? Like there was never any fear of losing this game, but it just could have been a lot less annoying if they had punched in on some chances early on, whether it be that first drive, whether it be the wide open miss to Will Pauling on 4th down. But I will say that it's, positive within a negative here. It's nice that the defense found a way to help out the offense when the offense had some uncharacteristic mistakes, but I really would have preferred this just be over early second quarter.
Yeah, it is disappointing that Notre Dame left points on the board, especially after last week. I was saying Notre Dame was going to score 40 every single game the rest of the season. They come out here. They had their opportunities. They did not capitalize. One thing that's going to be really annoying, has been annoying, will continue to be, is the situation at place kicker. And I feel like I'm getting deja vu. And to be fair, I was concerned about Noah Burnett throughout the offseason, the transfer from North Carolina. Then he comes out, shuts me up, starts off 3 for 3 in high-pressure situations, kicking big field goals against Miami and Texas A&M. And I felt like Notre Dame was in the clear. The kicking game was going to be sound. And now Burnett has a nagging injury. He's probably not going to be fully healthy anytime soon. And Notre Dame doesn't have a reliable kicker once again. The blocked extra point was entirely on Eric Schmidt, so Notre Dame benches him. They bring in Marcello, and I think he's sound at kicking extra points, but I don't think they really trust him kicking any field goal beyond 30 yards. And that is just an uncomfortable place to be. Even though the schedule eases up after the USC game, you would really like to have a reliable kicker going up against the Trojans because they're going to be able to put up points even against an improved Notre Dame defense. So we were in this situation last year. We're in it again. And I think Notre Dame, the way the schedule sets up, it could bite them in a way this year that it didn't last year.
Yeah, and you hope that's not the case, but I agree. Maybe Noah Burnett does play against USC, but would anybody be surprised if we don't see another field goal attempt until, let's call it the Navy game?
Maybe, yeah.
I would.
November 8th?
Yeah. I really wouldn't.
Yeah, probably not over 40 yards.
No, and you mentioned this, that extra point attempt from Eric Schmidt, that was not on the offensive. He basically kicked it at his lineman's ass. Like it was the worst kick you've ever seen.
After taking 5 seconds to start moving forward.
So I don't know. I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt after that field goal attempt. He did miss against Purdue, saying like there wasn't enough game pressure and that's why he missed it. But he might just not be ready yet. He's a freshman, and that's okay, but they kind of need him to be ready if Noah Burnett's not going to be healthy. What is strange is, as you mentioned, why was he okay to kick against Arkansas, but not this week? That one does not make a ton of sense to me.
I don't get it, but hopefully Notre Dame has an answer soon. But for as bad as the place kicking has been, they have had some things go their way in the kicking game.
They really have, but this was just absolutely tragic. James Rendell got absolutely hosed with his first career touchback. Now, the officials may have gotten this right according to the letter of the law. Stupid rule, because in the NFL, you see it all the time. But apparently in college, the ball on a punt can't break the plane at all in the end zone. Otherwise, it's a touchback. But I might blame Ben Minnick for this then, because he should have gotten to it sooner. Rendell places a ball perfectly within the 5-yard line, should have been down at the 1, ruled a touchback, and that was the first touchback of his career. I really wanted him to go his whole career without a touchback. Sucks he lost it on that, because that was a great punt.
He's been awesome this year. Like, he's been terrific.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's been one of their better players who never plays.
And, I mean, it's a good place for Notre Dame to be, but I feel like on this show especially, we were pretty critical of the 28-year-old Aussie last year. But, man, this year he's really taken his game to another level, but Notre Dame just hasn't really needed him a whole lot.
No, and that's a good problem to not have. But, man, I did feel for him on that one.
A couple other guys. So this is a similar boat here. I felt really bad for Jason Onye and Jalen Sneed because, to your point about James Rendell getting robbed by the officials, that was the correct call, but they need to change the rule for it to be more like the NFL because it creates some fun plays when guys are like laying out in the end zone. Yeah. Like, why would you not want that? So I hope they change that rule in college. But Jason Onye and Jalen Sneed were both robbed of a big moment. And these were two guys with big preseason expectations, and they haven't quite delivered on them yet. I thought Jalen Sneed had a really good game, but they came together for a big momentum play in this game, only for it to be wiped out by a BS penalty. The roughing the passer call made no sense in the moment, and it makes even less sense now because Onye didn't hit him in the head. He kept his arms up, and even though they technically called it because he had his body weight land on him, you could see he's actively like leaning up in a way so that he doesn't plant him. It's not like he wraps him up and then pile drives him into the turf. He's doing everything he can to avoid a penalty, and that pass ended up getting picked off by Jalen Sneed. And they end up calling the flag there, roughing the passer, one of the million flags that were thrown in this game. And it didn't affect the outcome. And I'm sure that Onye and Sneed are going to get plenty of credit from the coaches and film and all that stuff, but it's just not the same. They're not going to get the same satisfaction as if that play, if it had actually counted. So I'm disappointed for those two guys because I feel like they needed that, and ultimately they were robbed of that by the officials.
I also am not happy about this because I don't think I have complained about officiating yet this year. Actually, I think I've done the opposite. I even suggested Notre Dame got some favorable calls in the Miami game that they maybe shouldn't have, that helped. But this one you can't let slide. It was basically like a poorly officiated college basketball game where the officials are calling something every time down the floor and it completely screws the game of all rhythm. That doesn't happen in football that often, but it happened today. And I said it at one point, they just lost control of the game. And there needs to be some serious repercussions for this crew because they can't call a game. It's like nobody is there to see you get on TV and make a call. And that's what it felt like. It felt like they really had no feel. You had both teams booing them. Didn't care what the call was. They were just screwing up everything. And honestly, the thing that was kind of remarkable to me was that despite there being almost 30 flags, that was still a sub 4-hour game because there were just a ton. I think, what was it, 292 accepted penalty yards or something like that? It's
24 combined penalties accepted, though. There were multiple flags thrown that were not accepted by both teams.
Yeah, that's just shouldn't be a thing.
Right. I mean, to be pushing 30 flags in a single game, and Notre Dame hasn't had a game like that at all this season. Even though Boise State had been averaging, I think, about 8 penalties, this was just so over the top.
Yeah, these guys shouldn't ref a game this year. I mean, they were the crew that ref Virginia last year. Somebody needs to sit them down and put them in timeout.
All right, I have one last thing I didn't like before we wrap things up. Devontae Smith's injury and the situation at nickel is a little bit concerning. So Devontae Smith obviously missed the A&M game and he missed the Purdue game while he was recovering from an ankle injury. Well, Smith is already being ruled out for the upcoming game against NC State with a calf strain. So this is a separate injury from the one that he had already been dealing with. And he played just 7 snaps against Boise State before he had to come out of the game. And look, this is not his fault, but this is just a really unfortunate situation for Notre Dame. It might not matter against NC State, but I do think it's going to matter in a big way against USC. So you hope that they can have him back for that game, because Lincoln Riley is going to see a true freshman out there at nickel, and he's going to target him. And now, to Dallas Golden's credit, he came up, stepped up big time in this game. He had 6 tackles, 3 of them were solo, and I thought he was solid in coverage. But again, you're going up against a Boise State team that just doesn't have the level of talent that Notre Dame is likely going to see. And you look at what Notre Dame brought in the transfer portal. Malachi Fields was probably the biggest name, but then Devontae Smith is right there behind him. And again, this is not his fault, but it is unfortunate how it just hasn't really been able to work out for him so far in a Notre Dame uniform.
It also may just be who he is. I believe he missed an entire year at Alabama due to injury too, correct? And missed some other time due to injuries. I mean, it just kind of seems like he's made of glass.
Well, the interesting thing is Notre Dame has added 2 nickels in back-to-back years, Thomas Harper and Jordan Clark, who both had a history of injuries. And I think Thomas Harper had a concussion at one point and missed a game. I think he missed the Louisville game back in 2023, but Jordan Clark was able to stay healthy all year. And I think that the defense is a lot better when Devontae Smith is out there on the field. They certainly have more of an edge to him. We saw that against Arkansas. And again, I like Dallas Golden, but it'd be really nice to have your big-time portal addition from Alabama out there on the field.
Yeah, no doubt. I think Dallas Golden's played well, but yeah, they need to figure something out with this guy and make sure he stays on the field.
All right, well, looking ahead to NC State, you're actually not going to be at the game this weekend. So we're not going to have any boots on the ground report. So you're going to be struggling to watch a Notre Dame game and a potential Cubs playoff game. How are you going to cope?
It's gonna be interesting. We've got this game at 2:30 Central, a wedding mass at 3:00, and potentially Cubs Brewers game 5 at 3:30. So yeah, that's gonna be a busy few hours. Hopefully the Cubs just win it in 4, so it's not an issue. That it would require them actually showing up tonight and winning 3 in a row. But yeah, it's gonna be strange. My first missed game this year, but should be a fun time here in Chicago at a friend's wedding. But yeah, I will not be there. And really, I'm just hoping that this is not ever a game so I can step away from my phone and watch the game Sunday morning.
All right. Well, we'll have you back here next Tuesday to talk about it. And then right after that, big game against USC. Until then, thanks for coming on.
Indeed. Go Irish.
All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Irish. Thank you so much for making this your first watch or listen of the day. And if you have not already, please hit subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to like the video, leave a comment, and rate and review the podcast. It helps us grow. I'm going to be doing another mailbag on Friday, so drop your questions in the YouTube comments or send them to me on X at Locked On Irish or on Instagram at Locked On Irish Pod. And I'm going to be back here tomorrow morning with my full preview of Notre Dame's upcoming game against NC State. I'll see you then.